Hey folks, thanks for checking into the Neutral Zone Hotel. We are an unapologetically left-leaning podcast that explores hockey at its best and worst. I'm Benjamin, my pronouns are he, him. I am a Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Charge fan out of Ottawa, Ontario, and I'm pleased to welcome you to your stay at the Neutral Zone Hotel. Joining me to ensure you have a great stay are a couple of my colleagues, starting with Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
And we got Trevor here as well.
That's right. Trevor here. Pronouns are he, him, the regretful hometown Canucks fan and hopeful soon-to-be PWHL Vancouver fan. I don't have a bit. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah. It's always Tuesday when we record these, Trevor. And we are now in our post-Skype universe. We're using a new app called Jitsi. Thanks to SJ for doing the research and figuring this crap out. So, hey, that's fun. Go to hell, Microsoft.
Amen.
All right, so when I posted on our Discord in our little hidden chat for the people who actually record regularly, I said, hey, who's going to be around tonight? Because I knew SJ isn't going to make it. Alex said she has, quote, Mike Sullivan thoughts, end quote. And that is all I've put down for this segment title. So, Alex, why don't you take it away and we will have big thoughts about Mr. Mike Sullivan.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, Mike Sullivan, formerly the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, which he has held since the middle of the 2016 season, is no longer the head coach, having been, depending on which source you're looking at, left, fired, whatever. He's no longer the head coach there, and he was promptly picked up by the New York Rangers to fill their coaching vacancy. I have a lot of thoughts on this as kind of we've gone through. The first is that there's been kind of a lot of conflicting reports about what went down with Mike Sullivan's departure. I don't think they'll ever get cleared up, but I do think that what happened was that Dubas and other members of the Penguins leadership went to Sullivan and basically said, hey, we are tanking. This is going to be our plan for the next couple of years. We really like we like the job you've done, so we want to ask you, do you want to stick with us or do you want to go and get another job? And it's your choice. That's what I think happened. I think that's something consistent with a couple of the stories that have come out, even if they've been framed in different ways. And it's what I hope happened based off of how both the Penguins have talked about Sullivan as he departed, and how everyone involved kind of seemed to have and continue to have a respect for each other. But yeah, the Penguins are now in the head coaching market, and I have no idea who they're going to get. I can only hope they get someone who's has a track record at development. That's because that's what the Penguins really need right now.
So one thing that I found really interesting is that John Tortorella is not available because he's gone to New York with Sullivan to be an associate coach. And the idea of Tortorella being second to anybody is really fascinating. I know he wasn't even second, like when he was in Vancouver and when he was in New York before, he was like a wrecking ball. A little bit less so in Philly.
Yeah.
But still quite like one of the personalities. So it speaks a lot about Sullivan and his rapport with other people in the league and how well respected he is.
I'll have to double check it so I'm not accidentally doing misinformation, but I think Torts has been an assistant for Sullivan on the Team USA squad.
That was correct. They were together at Four Nations.
Yeah, so there's clearly something that lingers on from that.
Well, and not even that. Sullivan was an assistant under Torts in New York the first time around. And
wow.
also continued and followed him to Vancouver during Torts' 1 year as head coach there.
Yeah, it's a very how the tables have turned, except like without any animus.
How the turntables. So I think that's fascinating. The other thing that I think is very fair to say is I think that Sullivan is not coming into as good of a position as he was coming into when he took over the Penguins, but the Rangers still have a lot of talent.
Yes.
If the underperformance by players like Kreider and Zibanejad and to a lesser extent Panarin and Fox are in fact temporary, he could get a big boost out of them. My big question is, can Mike Sullivan insulate the players from Chris Drury?
Yeah.
Because Drury still seems to be interested in moving on some of the big heart and soul players, guys like a Kreider. And frankly, I think that's more than anything else, that's what cost Jim Laviolette his job this year. That team did not believe in playing for the people who ran the team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Sullivan probably has at least enough to juice some stuff out of the players on that front. But I don't know, like if Chris Drury decides, oh, screw it, we're getting rid of Chris Kreider. I know everyone loves him on the team, but we're going to fire him into the sun, which isn't as fun anymore now that Arizona isn't a thing. But we're going to get rid of him. Does that drive further dissatisfaction in the locker room, especially if he has to play hardball? Because let me pull up Puckpedia, because that's what you have to do these days. Yeah, Kreider's got a 15-team no trade. So if same with the Zibanejad's got a no move. So if he decides to play hardball with one of those players like he did with Trouba, what does that do to the locker room?
Yep. One of the notes that I kind of have I've kind of when I organized my thoughts on this is that Mike Sullivan inherited a pretty good position when he first came into the Penguins job. 2016 James Rutherford is a much better GM than 2024-2025 Chris Drury. Hell, 2024-2025 James Rutherford is a GM who I think is better than 2024-2025 Chris Drury. Or better hockey executive than Chris Drury.
Yep, I'd agree. Somehow I would agree.
And this is after kind of a 2-month period where Jimmy Rutherford has been on that good Jimmy Rutherford shit, just saying every possible thing to the media, sowing so much chaos. You love it as long as you're not a fan of the team that he is currently in charge of. I do not miss that. But I have a couple of kind of perverse incentives when it comes to Mike Sullivan, which is that I really respect him. I want him to succeed. I want him to do well as a coach. I think he deserves that. I also really, really want, and the Penguins really, really, really want the Rangers to be really bad next year because we own their first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not protected, is it? It was protected this year and not next.
That's right.
Yep.
If you want to tinfoil hat it, you can maybe look at it like the Eddie Johnston situation in the late 80s, early 90s, where I'm going to go to this other market and maybe sabotage them sabotage in quotes, to get the Penguins a better chance at being good.
I can be hopeful, but I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole. But as I was kind of like looking at it, I think that it was kind of a question I got asked a couple times last year when it looked like when the Rangers were in the market for a head coach and it looked like Sullivan was a possibility, which is what are kind of his strengths and weaknesses as a coach. I wanted to talk about that for a bit. The first of those is that he's actually a pretty good systems coach. He runs a pretty forecheck heavy trapping type system that's really actually fun to watch when it's all cylinders going. And he's not super rigid about it. He's been able to adapt a bit to the personnel. But the strongest version of the system, the system that won the 2 Stanley Cups, required a lot of speed from the players. And that's kind of an area where, as the Penguins core has aged, and as they became worse at getting young players into the system, that speed started to evaporate and the system started to be less effective. But still a pretty solid and entertaining to watch coaching when it's clicking. I think there's a good chance that it will work really well for the Rangers, less because of the players involved, but more because of the overall solid foundation that Sullivan has, and he's a lot less likely to be undone by the things that undid the Penguins over the past 5 years, which is to say that I think the floor of Shesterkin is going to be higher than the floor of the goaltending that the Penguins have had of injured Matt Murray, of Tristan Jarry. That floor is higher. So I think that'll be good. As a coach, he should come in and he should be able to tilt the Rangers a bit away from being what they have been, which was a team that wins by purely power play and goaltending. The roster, as it's currently constructed, is still centered around that, but I think he will be able to inject some energy into the 5v5. The other thing that I kind of think Sullivan, if you're a Rangers fan, that you're hopeful about with Sullivan is that he actually does have a pretty decent track record as a development guy. That's how he kind of came up in the Penguins system. He did a good job with that initial core of young players that he came up with. And so there's a reason to be hopeful that he will be able to even out some of the development flaws that the Rangers have had for the past decade or so. Be able to have the young players that they have get onto a actual development track and not have it seem like they're hamstrung at every step of the way. The flip side of that is he has not done as good a job of that over the past couple of years with the Penguins. But with that part, it's an open question of how much of that is a input problem, where you are getting less and less good young players into the Penguin system, either through not having the resources to acquire them under under late Rutherford, or just not doing a good job at evaluating them, like we saw a bit with Hextall. And the last thing, I think, is one of his real strong strengths, and this is something that, Benjamin, you've kind of alluded to, is that he's really well respected. He's good at keeping the trust of his players and those around him. This is probably the thing that's most needed by the Rangers. And it's why he lasted as long as he did in Pittsburgh. If there was any sense that he had lost the locker room over the past 3 years, the opportunity would have been there to fire him. And that didn't happen until now. And so I think he's a guy who's going to be able to, in theory, bring some stability to that locker room, bring some leadership to it. I definitely think it's a bigger challenge to the Rangers locker room as it's currently assembled, and the Rangers leadership above him is going to be a bigger challenge than the Penguins locker room, because I'm going to be honest, I think Sidney Crosby is pretty good at being a captain of a hockey team and doing the positive personality management as the captain. But the only notable issue that Sullivan has had was the end of Phil Kessel's Penguins tenure. There was severe tension between him and Kessel, and a couple of the other players, notably Malkin, kind of got caught between them. And it ended with the Penguins moving on from Kessel, sending him into the Sun. Which, as previously stated, is Arizona.
It was for a very long time, and now we don't have it. We don't get to have nice things anymore.
Yeah.
No.
And by nice things, I mean terrible things, but a funny place to park players and dead contracts.
The one concern I would have if I was a Rangers fan is that the Rangers are a power play and goaltending team. That's how they've been built. That's how they've had success this past couple of years. Not this year, obviously. But you know what's been really stinky? What's been the second biggest reason over the past 4 years of Penguins hockey that they haven't succeeded? The power play.
Yeah.
Despite
it has a murderer's row of talent on it.
Yeah, it has been very bad for the back half of Sullivan's tenure. A lot of that is Sullivan was way too slow to move on from an assistant coach who was bad at his job. But that, I think, is the concerning thing if you're a Rangers fan. That is where it could go really badly if it does go badly.
And for a team that relies so heavily on it, it's very make or break.
I unfortunately think that Mike Sullivan, all things considered, is going to raise the floor of the New York Rangers unless things go. And if things go really badly, it won't be things that he has control over. It'll be devastating injuries, especially at goaltender. It'll be the known radioactive players in the locker room just making an even bigger mess. It'll be Drury trading Chris Kreider. It'll be things like that tank the Rangers. I don't think it will be a failure on him. Unfortunately for the Penguins. And thus concludes my Mike Sullivan thoughts.
Thanks for the insight. I mean, yeah, no one would know about Sullivan better than you, considering you've had to watch his teams for about 10 years now. So,
if you want insight onto what Sullivan systems actually are, if you're an Athletic subscriber, you can search up articles by Jesse Marshall, who did the film analysis on Sullivan systems, and he has a few really good articles on what those systems actually look like. and I'm not really the gal to talk about that. But yeah, it's higher that as I've kind of thought about it a bit, I found that I really like it for the Rangers.
I think it's the exact right move for the Rangers. I think he was one of the best available coaches, and I think that given his track record of squeezing some juice out of aging rosters, I think he's a really good selection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious. I just don't know who they would get in Pittsburgh, and I worry you're going to get a guy whose job is just to keep Sidney Crosby happy for 2 years.
Yeah.
While young people, like, there's not a lot of young guys yet. There's a couple, but I don't want to see them get stomped over.
You want to make sure they get a good fair shot in the league to grow and develop.
I'm going to be honest. I have no insight into this. I could be completely off base on this, but I do think that, like, based off of the couple of anecdotes that have come out from young players on both the Penguins and on the teams that the Penguins are playing, I think if Sidney Crosby has kind of accepted the situation, I think it's going to be a really healthy environment no matter who the coach is, because I think Sidney Crosby is genuinely one of those people who does a good job of being a captain of an NHL team. And I think, but who knows if he's accepted the situation?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what the coach is going to do? Even a coach that is in theory a good hire can flame out or strike the wrong chord with the locker room over like a goalie decision or something like that. Especially with like Denver locking up their head coach, the University of Denver, closing that off as a obvious coach of young players option, which like teams that are definitely a couple years down the line of where the Penguins are expecting to be. Like the Blackhawks were really interested in him. And so the Penguins probably would have been in the market for that as well if it was a possibility, but it does not appear to be. Benjamin, you had a point about what coaches known for development aren't really making as much of an impact in the NHL anymore.
Well, it just feels like with the way that coaching tenure has shortened up, there's more pressure on coaches to deliver results. And when the standard NHL coach gets told to deliver results, what do? They play the veterans.
Yep.
So how can you develop, right? Mm-hmm. Now, on the other end, you have a guy like Greg Cronin who got a reputation as just being a giant prick.
Yep.
And as a result, the players did not respond. So he tried to keep them in line, but did not succeed. So the jury's still out on a few coaches, but this is why they brought Luke Richardson in to Chicago. He was supposed to develop the young guys, get Connor Bedard firing. And then Connor Bedard had a sophomore slump, and Richardson was immediately out on his ass.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the understanding that young players take time to develop? Now, I don't think that's universally true. Montreal has given Martin St. Louis a lot of runway. I think it's Warkowski. That's the guy in San Jose, right?
Yes.
Warsofsky.
It looks like, he looks like he's got tons and tons of runway. But Anaheim has not given their guys runway, and that's probably because Pat Verbeek's not particularly good at his job. The guys that seem good at it, like Tourigny in Utah/Arizona, they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
So where do you find a coach who's good at development? And keep in mind, David Carl is not available. He just re-upped in Denver for multiple years.
Yeah, Sullivan at one point in time had that reputation as a guy who was good at development. or at the very least, he was good at developing the players that he was actively coaching in the AHL, and then when he got brought up, came up with him.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
do you just hire your AHL coach out of Wilkes-Barre Scranton, considering if you're gonna be playing a lot of young players and also kind of wanting to tank, you may not necessarily want a good coach, but one who can at least teach, and that's what you're basically doing already in the AHL. So,
Well,
possibility there.
I mean, so it's Kirk McDonald is the current coach. He's only been a coach for a year. He was coaching in Dubuque beforehand, the Dubuque Fighting Saints, which are a Tier 1 junior ice hockey team in the USHL. Do you think that guy's ready for an NHL job? I'm not sure. Huh. And to be fair to the WBS Penguins, they were decent this year. They finished fourth in their division and then got knocked out. They got swept out in the playoffs in the best of 3 first round, the prelims. So, like, they obviously don't have a lot of firepower coming in yet. There's just no prospects in that system, or very, very few.
Yep.
So, is it like maybe you hire a guy you're only going to keep on for 2 seasons because it's going to be playing Sid anyway, and then you kind of go out and try to find your development guy, and by that point in time, you've built up 3 draft classes of talent in WBS, a couple guys on the Penguins, and now you're ready to start actually getting stuff going.
You know what? To that point, what did Edmonton do to make Connor McDavid happy? They hired his junior coach. Let's go find Crosby's junior coach from Rimouski from like 20 years ago.
Rimouski Oceanic coaches. Let's look.
Let's see. When he was in there, what, like 03, 04? 04?
Yeah, he would have been...
You know what? Who was an assistant coach was Guy Boucher.
Guy Boucher. Donald Dufresne.
Yeah, let's see.
Guylaine Raymond.
He's still there? He's still an assistant coach with them.
He's
with
back.
Rimouski, yeah.
He was gone for a few years, and he's back. Yoel Perreault is now the head coach.
Yeah.
Michel Oulet is there. Wow, there's a name.
Yeah. But yeah, you know what? Guy Boucher, let's go get the Bond villain himself back in the league.
I don't want to watch Guy Boucher coach my hockey team.
He's assistant for the Leafs right now, right?
Yes. And apparently he is now Guy Boucher is now going to be a head coach in the KHL for Avangard Omsk. So never mind, Guy Boucher is taken.
Oh, he wasn't on this season. He was on last season. Huh.
Anyway, yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot for the Penguins. A lot of mucking about and then hoping that Lady Luck smiles upon us in the lottery. Speaking of the lottery...
Yeah, we can talk about the lottery now. I don't think it's too much. So on Monday, the NHL drew the 2025 draft lottery. For the first time ever, they publicized the actual drawing of the balls. And I want to talk about that more than I want to talk about the outcome. The outcome was the Islanders move up from 10th to 1st. And Utah moved up from, I think, 14th to 4, something like that.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Any thoughts on the position?
Boo. I mean, I didn't necessarily have skin in the game, but boo.
I feel bad for teams like, I really feel bad for Seattle. Seattle, I think, is the team that needs a high draft pick the most. Chicago's had a few. Nashville seems to think they're bouncing back next year. Philly's had a couple. Boston can go to hell. Buffalo's had so many.
Yeah.
Anaheim, again, they've been wasting these players. Pittsburgh, I mean, if Pittsburgh won the first overall pick, then we would just know it's rigged.
Yeah, but
this player's not
it's also
not generational enough.
It's also a year early. Remember, they won in 84 and then 2005, so they have to win in 2026. It's every 21 years on the nose. Plus, that's when Gavin McKenna's up. So yeah, there's your generational.
No. What I hope happens is that just because it's going to be it's the funniest possible result, is the Rangers are bad next year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make the playoffs, and they win the lottery.
That would be pretty funny.
It's the Senators Classic.
Can you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine if the Penguins and the Rangers win the lottery spots and Pittsburgh gets the top 2 picks?
I mean, honestly, that would be really cool. Who's supposed to go number 2 to Gavin McKenna?
I don't know.
2026 NHL entry draft early rankings. Let's just Google it and see what comes up. Ivar Stenberg from Frölunda is who Wheeler has at number 2. But your other options include Ryan Lynn, RHD, Keaton Verhoef, RHD, Viggo Bjork, center, and I mean this guy's name, Ryan Rubrook. He is 6'4". That's pretty cool.
Big boy.
Big boy. Can't teach that. All right. So good luck next year. Hopefully that's what happens because it would be pretty funny. I'm just assuming the Habs will not be in the lottery again next year. Otherwise, so I have no problem cheering for Seattle or Pittsburgh. That would be great. And next year is supposed to be a very good year. It's a good year to have 2 high draft picks, I think, Alex. Did anybody else watch the special?
Yes. 100% did.
Alex, did you get to see it?
No, I did not.
So it was hosted, unfortunately, by Buchagros, who he's okay when he's talking, but he was reacting to these balls being drawn like somebody was giving birth in front of him. It'd be like, the first number is a 3. He'd be like, oh, wow. Oh, what's that doing to the odds? Oh.
What's the number 3 doing in the impact zone?
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
The random cutaways to the various GMs on Skype was not Skype anymore. Zoom was very funny, especially Kyle Dubas, who was geeking out at seeing the whole thing. You could tell.
I really appreciated them updating the odds after each pick. Like, as soon as a ball was drawn, it's like, all right, this is now the switch between who's more likely to have the picks. Now, like, as soon as that first ball was drawn in the first pick, I think it was a 7, you could see Calgary was immediately eliminated. And then, like, as they adjust the second one, all of a sudden, like, 5 teams are out, so on and so forth. And then when they got to the last pick, not only did they once again show the odds, but they showed specifically, these are the last, if this ball shows up, this is who wins.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting when they kind of set up the ball machine. They bring out this technician who's seems like dressed in a cardigan, and he's just the guy who's on TV today. They barely introduced him, and then they introduced like all the people, like the verification crew, the holding company that does that. Then they take out the balls, and they're in a steel briefcase. And I'm just surprised that the guy didn't like unlock it in a handcuff from his wrist. Like, I would have done that because it would have looked better. And then unlock it and open it up. And then as they inserted the balls, Gary Bettman visually verified each ball and repeated it out. So it'd be like ball 1. And Gary Bettman would be like, ball 1. And it'd be ball 2. And Gary Bettman would be like, ball 2. So like it's clearly like, it's funny to look at, but also very clearly this is the procedure they have been actually using, because there's validation at every step that something is correct. And I thought that was very interesting. And I thought it showed a lot of support for like how the NHL does this. And then they blew the whole thing up by going to a commercial break between balls 3 and 4.
Yep. Got to get your ad dollars in.
And I was like, man, I get it. You got to do your ads, but if you're doing this because you want to show people that the NHL lottery is not rigged, nobody who believed that before is going to walk away believing that now.
Yeah. And then during the whole second draw as well, instead of doing the same thing, the part that we were all actually excited for, they just have the balls kind of off to the side. Like it's like, take your screen, like if you're sitting in front of a computer screen or just any screen, take about, or cut it in half. The left half is going to be just a normal screen, but then over on that right hand side, just basically like draw a little quarter section of that was the balls spinning and whatnot. The bottom quarter was the order and whatnot, and that, but on the left, was it actual something fun or to be interested in? No, it was just a interview with Islanders, not even general manager, probably just alumni and some kind of fancy title, Ken Morrow, talking about how great it was that they got the first overall pick. I don't care. I don't need to see that. I want to see lottery balls.
Kevin Weeks is such an awkward interviewer. So when he was interviewing, which legend was it that the Islanders had?
It was Ken Morrow.
Yeah, so when he's interviewing Ken Morrow, who very clearly did not expect to be on, like, he wasn't like unprepared to be on camera, but he very clearly was not expecting to be the guy they interviewed about winning the draft lottery. But Kevin Weeks is such kind of like a milquetoast.
Well, what it was is Kevin Weeks wasn't used to having a camera that showed his entire face instead of just the top half,
Yeah, he's usually making his little videos to do breaking news from whatever funny location he's in.
Exactly.
Hey, it's Kevin Weeks calling you from the inside of a shoebox to let you know that so-and-so's been traded to Utah.
But, yeah, no, it was just kind of a whole flustercuck, shall we say.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun to see, and when they're actually drawing the balls, I was legitimately like drawn in.
The spectacle of it was great, and I think chatting with other people, it was very funny how at the beginning people were like, "Oh, this stinks. Why are we watching this?" Then literally, as soon as two balls are drawn, it's like, "Oh, wait, maybe this actually rules."
The whole thing is they need to go a lot further on the entertainment value. Get a live studio audience, right?
Yeah,
like get a live studio audience. Sell tickets to this thing. Get
guests to draw the balls or something, right?
Well, you can't, because this is a professional procedure that's being verified. It wasn't PWC they were using anymore, but a company like PWC, right? Auditors. So you can't have random people do it. You maybe could get away with,
like, you can get them to take care of everything. As soon as the ball shoots up, it should just be fair game for someone to grab it, right? That's what I mean. Like,
it's still got to be the validated people who grab it, right? Because if you watch, what was happening was the technician would pick it up, he would show the ball to Gary, and then Gary would confirm the number on it, and then the guy from the auditing company would confirm it, write it down, and then they would do that like it was a process. Yeah. So they're trying to do it because they want that legal trail. But I think there's all sorts of things you could do. Like, does the guy who calls the time, does that guy have to be part of this? Can you validate 8 fun guests? I mean, who can the NHL get as fun guests? But, can't get Justin Bieber to do it because he will not stand up. That guy was standing like at attention like a soldier the whole time. No, I thought it was good. I hope they do more with it. It was fun.
Yep. It was, much more fun than I was expecting out of this league. But, I mean, to be also fair, we've been wanting and clamoring to see this lottery ball thing in action since they implemented it. So, in typical NHL fashion, they did it, just potentially too late.
I think that's fair. Anything else we want to add on this? We can jump to the next piece.
No, I'm good. I have nothing else to say.
Okay, well, let's talk about the playoffs. Let's do a round 1 NHL recap. Maybe try to keep it decently quick on each one. So maybe just a couple thoughts each. So starting with the East, let's go Toronto versus Ottawa. Toronto wins 4-2.
I will. My thought on the series is this: everyone was understandably and rightfully excited about the chance for the Leafs to blow this in the series, as is their recent history. But they forgot that the only thing stronger than the Leafs blowing it in the playoffs is the gravitational pull of the Sens blowing in the playoffs, specifically to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a fun series. It was great to see Ottawa in it, and I hope they can build on it and get back into the playoffs, because the fans deserve it, and that team looks like they do some damage in a later year.
I agree with that. Ottawa fans were very happy to get to Game 6. I think that they're very proud of it. They recognize it's the first year in the playoffs for this core. They think the core is good. I'm not so sure about the core is good part. It's decent core. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's winning the Stanley Cup, but Linus Ullmark played his ass off, and Brady was a lot of fun to watch. So I expect the Sens to make it again next year. I don't think the Bruins are coming back, and I hope that they get to win a round.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tampa versus Florida, the Battle of Florida, in fact.
Completely subverted what I expected. I thought Florida was going to have some fatigue from last year's Cup run, and I thought Tampa was going to improve off of their early exits from prior years, and that got immediately turned on its head, maybe because Florida kept hitting people in the head.
I'm curious where Tampa goes from here.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was the big retool. They brought in Jake Gensel. They got McDonough back. They did a lot to try to make this roster more competitive around the core pieces of Point and Kucherov and Hedman and Vasilevsky, and they got one playoff victory for it. And that's to me concerning.
To that, sorry, just to quickly piggyback off Kucherov. Crazy stat. Do you want to know when Kucherov's last playoff goal was?
I'm going to guess 2021.
Close-ish. 23. It was Game 1 against Toronto in that first round series. So he's gone 15 games without a goal in the playoffs.
Damn, who does he think he is? Mitch Marner?
This is a guy who's won the past 2 Art Ross trophies.
Yeah, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Washington versus Montreal. Washington goes over in 5.
About what was expected. Montreal made it fun, though. They made it close, a lot closer than maybe it should have been. But again, stepping stones for Montreal for sure. And I mean, Washington's going to keep riding this OV high. Might as well.
The Eastern Conference had a lot of close games and not particularly close series. Taking a step back at the larger thing.
The goal for the Montreal core this year was to play meaningful games down the stretch, which they did. I said it during the stretch. It wasn't necessarily about winning those games, but they won enough of them to earn the playoffs. Losing to a team like the Capitals, by which I mean a team full of some really good hockey players, before anyone gets cranky at me, especially Alex Ovechkin, I think is an excellent experience for a very, very young team, and a team that's only going to get younger because a lot of the veterans, guys like Armia and Savard, are not going to be there next year. They're going to be replaced with guys mostly coming from Laval. So I think it was an excellent experience for the Habs. I wish they'd won another game, but I was thrilled to see them there. I think everyone was thrilled. And I think for the Caps, these were four of those games were pretty close. A lot of empty netters scored in the series. I think for the Caps, they showed that they were not pushovers. They were a little weak going down the stretch. The Habs were pretty strong going down the stretch, and they very methodically took the Habs apart. Spencer Carberry did an excellent job coaching his team against Martin St. Louis. So,
one more quick thing. Fantastic seeing the Montreal crowd in the playoffs again. God, are they a loud barn, and it's so fun, super fun to see.
And that brings us to the Hurricanes and the Devils. Hurricanes in 5.
Nailed that one on my bracket.
Definitely a series in which the Devils missed having their best players.
Tough to say how this would have gone if Jack Hughes, I think Doug Ezo'd as well.
Yeah. And then Luke Hughes went out in game 1.
Tough, real tough.
He'd also maybe like
to the Devils.
He'd also maybe like Jacob Markstrom to make a save, but
I mean, they're not like two of those games went to double overtime. Markstrom was making saves. I don't know. Carolina remains very good at what they do.
Yep.
All right. I am going to change. I'm not going to go in the order here because I want to talk about that one last. But I will kick off with Stars versus Avalanche, which was, of course, Avalanche losing to the Stars in 7. Mikko Rantanen scoring the revenge hat trick in the final period of the last game to put the Stars over the top.
I don't know how you could script it better. Especially since up until that very point, it was still kind of a open question whether Rantanen was going to work out in Dallas. And then it worked out incredibly well, at least for that one incredibly important, incredibly narrative impacting game.
yeah. I mean, he had all of 1 point in the first 4 games and then decided to turn it up and score 11 points over the last 3. Talk about putting a team on your back and shutting up some doubters and maybe breaking a few hearts along the way. And I will say, Landeskog actually looked really good for having not played hockey for about 3 years. And if you want to have your heartstrings tugged a little bit, Landeskog was mic'd up for Game 7, and there's video of him going through the handshake line, and a lot of love given to him from the Stars players. So it shows a lot of, like, just how much respect he's earned around the league.
He had 4 points in 5 games playing bottom 6 minutes.
Plus the loudest, I think we've talked about the Montreal crowd. I don't think I've heard a crowd louder than when Landeskog scored in Colorado.
Yeah, they crushed that for sure.
Dallas is probably, as they're getting some of the stars back that were injured for the entirety of the first round, they're a team that's looking pretty scary.
Robertson and Heiskanen. Yeah. So I that series, the Jets should be a real barn burner. Knights versus Wild. That was the Knights in 4 or in 6. Sorry.
Yeah. No surprise there. Vegas is just too deep. Minnesota gave it a good old college try, but once again, also I think they set a North American Pro Sports League record by becoming the first team to make the making the playoffs in a 10-year span in 8 of those 10 years and losing in the first round in each one.
Minnesota?
Yep.
Yes.
Who do they think they are? The Toronto Maple Leafs? I am going to keep making fun of the Leafs. Go ahead.
Speaking of long streaks, I meant to bring this up on the last series. The Avs still unable to win a Game 7.
Yeah.
Right. They've lost 7 in a row now.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have won a Game 7 more recently than the Colorado Avalanche.
Oof.
That's very funny.
Yeah, what was it? Colorado was tied with Toronto and Ottawa for most consecutive Game 7s lost. All had 6 in a row, and then Colorado decided to one-up them by losing a 7th. Oh, and then Pete DeBoer setting a record with becoming the first coach to ever win 9 Game 7s, and he's 9-0 in them.
So very interesting stuff, and I want to just put a slight pin in that.
Yep.
Kings versus Oilers.
The best way to summarize this is when the Kings are up 2-0, I went back into one of my other Discord servers and saw someone who was talking, like 2 months prior, who's a Kings fan, was talking about how she didn't want the Kings to face the Oilers. And I almost replied saying, so how do you feel now? And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because would I have been putting my foot right in my mouth.
Bye-bye, Rob Blake.
Yeah.
Also, dumbest challenge ever.
This definitely cost Rob Blake his job. I think they like Jim Hiller, and I think he did a good job in the regular season, but they've got to be a better playoff team. The other thing I want to note is Connor McDavid had 11 points, Leon Draisaitl had 10, Adrian Kempe had 10, but that was kind of it for the Kings. So
Well, Kempe got like 7 of those points in the first 2 games.
Yep.
So yeah, the Kings can do all they want until they get a 100-point player to match the offense of McDavid, let alone Draisaitl. They're not doing much more.
Yep, I agree. Okay, which brings us back to the top because I wanted to move the Jets Blues to the last because wow, that was a series.
That was a games. That was just a game 7 of all games. Like, that is the game that you show casual hockey fans or people who have never watched a game of hockey before. Just pure art. Everything you want in a hockey game in terms of storyline and scripting, that game 7 is the game you put on.
That last the game tying goal with 1.5 seconds left, the latest ever game tying goal in Stanley Cup playoffs history. Thrilling goal. I screamed. It was so cool. And it was really the immovable force versus the unstoppable object, because I got them backwards. I apologize. Sorry, Gorilla Monsoon. Sorry. The unstoppable force versus the immovable object, in that it was Binnington, who had been perfect in game 7s and like final games of tournaments, versus Hellebuck, who had built up a reputation as he can't win in the playoffs. And Hellebuck wins, Binnington fails, and the Blues go home and the Jets move on.
Go ahead, Alex.
The Jets move on, but I'm not sure Connor Hellebuck did anything to change that reputation.
No. Because, like, when it was 3-1 Blues, the shots, I think, were something like 20-20. And by the end of the game, the shots were 48-29 for the Jets. Like, as soon as that third goal kind of went in, the Jets poured it on. And as soon as they tied the game, like, it went to 2 overtimes. But I think the Blues maybe had possession in the Jets zone for a total of 5 minutes in both those overtimes combined. It was one-sided as hell.
Absolutely. You know, I think the Jets, if Hellebuck can find his form, they'll be very difficult. But the Stars are going to be a tough team, man. Tough team. All right. Very quickly, predictions.
Stars, Knights, Panthers, and Hurricanes.
Alex?
Stars, Oilers, Leafs, Hurricanes.
Stars, Oilers, Leafs, Capitals.
Ooh, all right. Good job, everyone. Only one unanimous series.
I mean,
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Winnipeg Jets, I guess. On
I mean, it seems wild to not pick the President's Trophy winner, but let's be fair. Whoever was winning that Colorado-Dallas series basically had the path to the Cup final. Like, that was the hardest series they'll face all playoffs, I'd imagine.
I would think so. Well, I mean, if they end up against Florida or the Leafs, I think that's going to be a tough finals for them.
I think Carolina would be harder than the Leafs, but I agree.
I have no belief in I have no belief in the Hurricanes. They're a vastly fraudulent team, fake team. All right, and with that off the board, very quickly, let's touch on the PWHL. So PWHL playoffs are set with the Minnesota Frost trouncing the Boston Fleet 7-1 to
8-1.
secure a playoffs. 8-1. Jeez, I missed a goal.
Yeah, they scored with like 30 seconds left on a power play, just to add insult to injury.
Man, that's wild. And they started Aaron Frankel too, and they had to pull her. And meanwhile, Ottawa beats Toronto 2-1 in overtime. Katerina Mrazova with the bullet to secure Ottawa's first ever playoff spot. Montreal as the first overall team, gets to choose their opponent, has chosen Ottawa, which makes sense. They had the exact same record against them as the Frost, a better goal differential, and they get to sleep in their own beds at night, which I think is a pretty big bonus if you're a hockey player. I strongly suspect the series to be interesting. So it's Toronto versus Minnesota, the rematch from last year. Last year, Natalie Spooner got hurt partway through, and then Toronto went out. And Montreal versus Ottawa. What are you thinking, Trevor?
Quickly, you talked about when the Jets tied the game, how you jumped out of your chair and screamed. That's what I did when Katerina Mrazova scored. More than I did for any goal in the NHL playoffs. I was amped up to see Ottawa win that game and get in. Also interesting, too, because Montreal hasn't won a playoff game. Remember, they got swept out by Boston last year. So, I don't know, it's going to be a fun series. It's no matter what, this is going to be kind of one of those series that no matter who wins, I kind of win, because this is going to be my two favorite teams currently going at it. I would prefer Ottawa, but I'm not going to say no to Montreal, especially because if you go way back to like early on in our second season of episodes, I predicted that the Victoire would win the Walter Cup. So, yeah. But like I would if you want me to make a prediction, I would say Montreal in 4.
I think it's going to be Montreal probably in 5. As much as it hurts me to say that, and it's not like I'm not going to be cheering on my beloved Charge, but I think Montreal is the better team. The big challenge for Montreal is their top line and their goaltender. Ottawa has significantly better depth. Montreal had an underwhelming coast to the finish. Ottawa won 4 of their last 5 games. So I think it's going to be a situation where Ottawa comes in, surprises Montreal in one of the first 2 games, wins a game at home to go back to Laval for the final. Mm-hmm. What about Toronto and Minnesota?
Minnesota's riding a good high to get in because they needed to win both their last 2 games in regulation to make the playoffs, and they did it commandingly with a 4-0 win over Ottawa, and then that 8-1 just crushing of Boston. I think they will definitely come out swinging against Toronto, who, like Montreal, kind of faltered towards the end. But I think Toronto will right the wrong of last year. I think they are a better team than they were last year. And I think Minnesota is, well, especially because Maddie Rooney's out. So it depends which Nicole Hensley you get. Are you going to get the one who has been great the last 2 games, or are you going to be the one who let in 4 goals on like 13 shots against Ottawa? I think Toronto takes it in 5.
I'm going to say Toronto in 4. Don't believe in Minnesota at all.
Which, no matter what, I mean, and that's the beauty of this, is 3 of the 4 teams in the playoffs are Canadian. We're going to get our first Canadian finalist for the Walter Cup. In a perfect world, we'd get 2. But
I mean, coin flip, but we'll see what happens.
It's going to be fun to watch, though. I'm going to be watching every game for sure.
I am excited to go to my first ever PWHL playoff game next week. So, honestly, tickets are not even that expensive.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Well, TD Place is already a rocking bar, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like with that extra playoff amplification to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So with my season ticket holder discount, it's $35 a seat, and my seats are pretty good.
Wow. Yeah.
I was also allowed to buy extra tickets, so my buddy Phil and his wife and daughter are coming. We're going to go to hopefully about 4 games. So
fingers crossed.
We will see.
In a perfect, if all things line up, there's a chance you could get 5.
Yeah, if Minnesota beats, there's a chance for 5.
But no matter what, it's going to be a great time.
I kind of, if Ottawa is going to win, though, I kind of want them to be the away team because there's a better chance they win at home that way.
Yeah, I get you. I understand. Yeah. No, man, I'm excited for you. I hope you take some vid. I hope you take, no matter what, going to be excited for the pictures and just going to be cheering on the Charge with you.
All right, man. Any other thoughts people want to throw out there?
Not really. I'm hoping for, the PWHL has announced they will be announcing their expansion draft rules soon. And I hope they do that soon so that we can do something real fun with that.
I'm trying to get ahead of it. I want my rules, not their rules, because I think it'll be more fun.
That's a good point.
So with all that in mind, the only other thing I want to say is the Sam Bennett, Anthony Stolarz thing. It is bullshit that he did not get a fine. I understand why, because if you look at the slow-mo, it looks like he kind of pulls his arm back at the last minute. And the NHL just needs an excuse to not give a guy a fine. But the rule should be you shouldn't be allowed to hit someone in the head, period, full stop. We had a good discussion about this on our Discord, neutralzonehotel.com/Discord. So if you want to join in and chat about it, we are happy to. We are happy to have you come along. And yeah, I think that's it. We can probably close this down. So, folks, thanks so much for listening. This has been the Neutral Zone Hotel, which is written, hosted, and produced by us, the Neutral Zone Hotel crew. We are at neutralzonehotel.com/Discord for our Discord, like I just said. We are on Instagram, Bluesky, and YouTube at Neutral Zone Hotel. Please give us a thumbs up, 5 stars on your podcast platform, and tell a friend if you had a good time listening today. It's word of mouth that helps us grow. We could really use your help with it. Folks, as always, our thanks to our friend Emily Mowbray for designing our logo, and thanks to you for listening. We will see you next time. Take care.